idea for all this really came from a dream?
Yes, it did.
Good evening and welcome to Nox Mente. Good afternoon, I suppose. Tonight's guest is John Chadwick. John is an illustrator, animation, filmmaker, writer, and educator. His art ranges from the written and spoken word to book covers, and model making. His work has been exhibited, printed, and performed in various forms since his 1995 film, Spiritual Love. Was nominated for a Young Narrative Filmmaker in the Year at the 1996 British Filmmaker Short Film Festival. In 2010, he was awarded the Writer-Illustrator's Bursary from the Fuels Trust at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. In 2014, his animated short film, The Brain, was selected by Sergei Bromberg to appear in the Showcase of Animation, inspired by Charlie Chaplin at HAFF, the Holland Animated Film Festival. John is currently an administrator of the popular Facebook group Folk Horror Revival, where he facilitates the Young Artists of the Month Award. He's also the co-host of Drawing Out the Spirits podcast. John, welcome to the show. And he's quiet.
Oh, John, we can't hear you. I think you're muted. And welcome, by the way.
Still can't hear you?
This is funny. We were chatting away forever. I wonder what happened. The difference. We're watching John. Though. We're here, people. It's not Nox Mente without a gremlin. Still can't hear you, John. Psychic energy. Well, I'm glad to be back after my week. Sorry, everyone, about that. I sounded atrocious. It was painful to speak.
Hello.
And
hello.
There That was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah,
yes, considering we were chatting earlier.
Thank you for that amazing intro.
You're welcome.
I feel like I've won an Oscar. I should be thanking.
I took it off your website, so.
Oh, yeah, it's out of date as well.
Well, you'll fill us in at the end of the show. Definitely.
I'm so excited to be here. It's great. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thanks for coming.
We're very excited also, and this has already been a great show with the pre-talk. We've just been chatting away. John and I actually annoyed Jerry.
He didn't annoy me. It was like you didn't realize. But I didn't care because no one was listening. I don't think anyone is yet.
Yeah. Oh, God, we weren't live, were we?
No, but I did record it. So.
Okay, cool. So anyway, here we are, John. I'm so glad that you are here, and especially at this, we're in an auspicious time of the year, and everything is feeling, wild. What a wild season, as they say it is. So let's just jump right in and give us a taste of your earliest memories in life and the things that stick out therein. So go deep, go way back.
People do not believe this, but I was in Canada at about 18 months, staying with family over there with my parents, and I remember being in a swimming pool in there, and I remember going to a children's kind of theme park in Ontario called Storybook Park, and it's strange. I surely shouldn't have those memories. I literally I was a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. Yeah, and they're vivid. The colours are vivid in the memories, and there's something in particular that I remember. They had. It was like a hippo's head or something sticking up out of a pond, and you slid down inside it, and there were windows in it, and you could see the beavers swimming around. That's how I remember it. But there's probably people who listen to this who have been there and think, "What the hell's he talking about?" So it could be a false memory. But,
it sounds wonderful, actually. I wonder, so give us some more imagery around that. So, and of course your mother probably confirmed that you had been there, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things is that they took cine camera film footage. And I've often thought, well, is that where I picked it up from? But I have it point of view. and so that doesn't make any sense. Um, I also remember going down to my uncle's friend Bernie. He had a deck in his house. You go downstairs underneath, and there's more rooms down there. And I remember being carried down the stairs, and he had shelves that had what looked to me like toys on the shelves. And I distinctly remember them. They were like figurines. And I've since been told that the reason why I wasn't allowed to get hold of them like I wanted to was because they were all basically obscene. Uh, they were the kind of thing that if you squeezed or pushed the head down, certain anatomical actions would take place. So,
Oh, I love
these
those.
weren't children's toys. So, and that comes as quite a shock to me, really, because in my memory, these are kind of like really nice things to have
Yeah.
around.
Oh my goodness, I love that. There are these toys from the 18th century I love. They were adult toys, obviously, but they were these dolls that were anatomically correct, and they were court dolls, and they're really quite naughty, very, very naughty. Some of them were, drag queens and all that. And so all that stuff just reminds me of the dandy period and all that good stuff. What about, so I want to look at this dream a little, this memory. So the water and the hippo under the pond and stuff. Do you have any military in your family?
Well, my grandfather was a captain during World War II. He was on the cannons during, oh no, it wasn't the Blitz, it was the Battle of Britain. Or was it the Blitz? I can't remember. So yes, I do.
Mhm.
It was Royal Artillery. Yeah, interesting enough, he told me it must have been about a week before he died. He must have known he was dying. He opened up and he said to me, he said, whatever went up has got to come back down again. And I was like, right. He said, I think I destroyed more of London than Hitler did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he
Oh,
obviously held that throughout his entire life. But if you
yeah.
think about it, it makes sense, you know. Um,
Yes. Yes. Well, whatever goes up must come back down. So there they were fighting. It does make sense. What a sad ordeal altogether.
Yeah, he said the chances of hitting anything were ridiculous. I mean, they had to work out it, mathematically using all kinds of equations to work out where things were, what angles were, and then work out basically how fast it's going and then shoot in front of it so it'll actually hit it. He said your chances of hitting anything were slim. So he said it's got to come down somewhere. And if you're firing over the city, where else is it going to come down?
Yeah. Oh, that's so sobering.
But that's it. Our uncle did his national service, and that's it. Don't have any other.
What about, so where were you born? Like, where did you grow up at least?
Oh, I was born in the beautiful, I'm being sarcastic here, the beautiful northern British town of Middlesbrough, which is, it's one of those places that needs a lot of investment in it, but it's a great place for the people and the sense of humour. There's a very unique sense of humour there. It's very irrational, I think, and quite surreal. So yeah, and then I was brought up about 10 miles south of there, on the border of the North Yorkshire Moors, in a little town called Gisborough, ancient town.
Ooh, I like that.
Remains of a priory in there that Henry VIII had knocked down, which allegedly was haunted. That it was a very odd place for a lot of things to do with Fortiana, in my opinion. It was a great place. I mean, it was forestry there, so I spent a lot of time amongst trees and fields. You were talking to somebody else about building forts. We call them dens here. That's all we did. Dug little traps for people to step into with spikes in the bottom of them.
Oh my. You were serious.
Yeah, we were Lord of the Flies.
Yes. Yes. So these moors that you grew up near, did you ever have actually in any period in your earlier youth, did you have any, I guess, paranormal experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I must have been about 3 years old. We were very close to the town of Whitby. You know,
Oh,
places.
yes, all the yes.
And
That's Simon Park's territory.
And home of Whoopi Jet.
oh yeah,
I
my friend Loz
wearing
makes
so
it.
much of it.
My friend
Yes,
Loz makes that. You've probably got some of his.
I could. I usually most of my jet is Victorian.
Oh, right. Well, I was there, and I must have been about 3 years old, and I apparently had said to my parent, "Where's my ship?" And they were saying, "What ship? What are you talking about? These are fishing boats," because it had a fishing industry at the time. I think it might have one fishing trawler left these days. But yeah, I went on to recount that I had a ship, and it was called the Whitby Rebound.
Mm.
I have researched and I have looked for it, and I can't find any record of it at all. I mean, I did some work for the museum there at one point, which is one of the only places I believe in the world that's got a hand of glory,
Oh wow.
which is pretty
Yes.
grim. But
What
yeah,
did that look like up close?
um, like it was made out of cardboard. It was so. I mean, honestly, you've seen these documentaries where they pull mummies out of tombs and unwrap them. It just
Yes.
looked like that,
Yes.
but it still had its fingernails on it. It was really, really withered. Um,
I've never been up close to a real one, and so I mean, and so that's the yeah, that I've probably seen a picture of that one in like old Doreen Valiente's photos of
well,
stuff she would access.
I believe, if this is true, that it was found above a mantle, above a door, in a cottage in a little nearby village called Castleton. And not only was the hand there, but there was a piece of poetry, the spell
Oh,
used with it. So then you'd light the fingers, and you know the amount of flames that would stay alight told you how many people were in the house that you were about to burgle. So if they all
yes.
went out, you could then go in. Um, and the only other thing I know about it is that they tended to use left hands from redhead people. That was a big thing. That they had to have been hanged.
Yes. I heard hanged for like thievery or stuff like that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah, the lore around the Hand of Glory is just so fascinating. Oh, poor redheaded people. Poor
I heard
I
someone the
like
other day.
redhead people. Sorry, Jerry.
No. I heard someone the other day talking about how the red-headed people are from Lyra, the cat
Where's
people, in space.
a star constellation.
The Lyrians, like the Lyrians, are allegedly cat people, and the red-headed, the gingers here are from that lineage, that DNA lineage. If that shit's true.
You know, it's funny because I'm a ginger, and I find that I'm more attracted to dogs than cat. Just in because I have wolves and stuff. So
I'm so glad you said cats, because I actually thought you were going to say people then. No, I was gonna... oh, where am I?
So I want to get back to this boat. So that you found nothing with the Whitby Rebound. Oh no, you went out again, darling. It's that mic. I'm not sure what it is.
I keep clicking the mute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, if I click mute and then click it off again, it's back on. Don't ask me why.
It's our daily it's the gremlin of the day.
There's not a lot of background noise, so don't worry about it.
Okay, well that's. I can't remember what you asked me.
So the Whitby Rebound, did you? And so when you went searching for it, you were 4 years old when you had brought this up, and later when you went searching for it, did you go back on very old records? Say like,
I actually asked the two brothers who run the museum at the time. They were called, the surname was Pickle, which I always found quite amusing. So the Pickle brothers checked it out for me. They found nothing. But one of the things that was there are so many Whitbys, particularly side of the Atlantic. There are Whitby, Canada as well as in the
Hmm.
States. So there is absolutely no reason why it has to be this Whitby.
Yes. I find this really fast when this stuff comes up, especially from such a young, you were so young when you brought that forward, that it's, it's a jewel that should be sussed out, in my opinion, further. So back in this period, were you
It'd make
so
a great name for a fast food restaurant.
Whitby.
I'm going to Whippy's. You want anything?
John, your sound is very low, by the way.
Right, hold on a moment. Am I better now?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. We'll just hold the mic.
Oh my goodness, sorry.
All right.
Oh, it's one of those Yeti globes. You can turn the gain up on that.
So, what-
Is there a button or a twist knob? If not, don't worry about it. Just get up there and kiss that thing.
So back in these early days, did you have how was your relationship with dreaming? Do you remember that you were a child that had dreams?
Yeah. I have a memory of one from when I was about 3 years old. There was a television program that was on over here. I'm not sure if it was Czech or Russian or something. It was dubbed into English, and it was about Cinderella. I have a memory of dreaming that I lifted up a piece of carpet in my room and there was a trapdoor. And if I went down into the trapdoor, I went into this television program, and there were all the characters there. So yeah.
That's fascinating. There's so much underground stuff with you. A lot, with the hippo thing
Yeah.
and the basement and this. I'm intrigued by this thread we've got going. Did you have, so in this early period also, did you have typical fears like of the dark or of the wood under the bed?
Later I did. I remember being very scared that there was a graveyard not so far away from the house. But it wasn't until I was about 15 or 16 that I started to tell my parents that I was experiencing things, and I was holding it in. And I honestly thought that, like a lot of people who go through this, I thought maybe I had something like schizophrenia or something. So I
Mhm.
wasn't telling anybody. And when I told my mother, she said, "Well, we all do that. We all see that. Don't worry about it. You were like it when you were a kid." And I was like, "What?"
Ah.
She said, "Oh, yeah." She said, "Well, because you never slept, you always had insomnia," which I was saying earlier. We used to come into your room and you were there talking to people and playing with people. And when we tell you to go to bed, you'd wave your friends goodbye. And yet it's strange, I have no memory of this. And I don't ever recall having an imaginary friend. My sister did, who was 3 years older than me. But no, that's just very odd. I have no memory of that. And it's quite strange because I have vivid memories of these other things, but I have no memory of that. So yeah.
It's interesting. I love that you have a really good grasp on some of this early stuff. Some people have no memory before a certain age, usually until they hit puberty. And so this is really, I filled up a whole page on this already. It's juicy. So with the fears, okay, so first of all, it must have been a relief that your mother was so calm about that and validating.
Yeah.
Did that give you some sort of internal acceptance to move further?
It did, but they were always very, because it was I was going to say it was a religious household. It wasn't really. We were Church of England was what I was raised as. The only time we ever went to church, as far as I remember, was maybe at midnight mass. I don't ever remember being a big one for it.
What are the key differences between the C of E and like Roman Catholicism?
One allowed Henry VIII to get divorced.
Right. Besides that,
and their priests can get married. I don't know. I mean, basically, if when I've been to a Catholic church, which I have been, because I've had Catholic girlfriends.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. It's the parents' fault for raising them that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything much different in the service. I mean, you can get divorced, obviously, with the Church of England, and if you have a child out of wedlock, you don't get excommunicated.
Okay. So
You can
I
wear
was
a
always
condom,
curious. Yeah.
Barry?
Pardon? No.
I don't know what else.
I wouldn't be a member of any organization that would have.
Yes, I feel that way.
Well, that answers our religious stuff when you were young. So you were basically just almost like, not devout. Just seems casual.
Yeah, but at the same time, when I started listening to Iron Maiden, I could tell my mum, and I wanted some tarot cards, and she wouldn't have them in the house.
Oh my.
I remember a book club being on the back of some magazine that she was getting, and in the middle of the page where it showed all of the pictures of the books, there was Aleister Crowley's Magick,
Yes.
spelled with a K, and I was like, my God, what's this? And she was like, you are not ordering that. I will not have this in the house. So by the time that I developed an ear for bands like Slayer and Morbid Angel and Napalm Death, I know my mother wasn't very happy.
I love that you bring up the everything at one point. Modern people don't understand this. Was at the back of catalogs, or sometimes in the last note pages of a book from that publisher, and so much juicy stuff you could get.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at those ads, the imagination would stir. I love that feeling that happened, and now everything is just so easily accessible, and it doesn't see. You can go looking; it's easy to find. But back, not that long ago, just seems more mysterious.
Oh, to get hold of any books on Fortean subjects,
Yes,
you were lucky if you could find those things in a bookshop, and if you did, it would have been the most mainstream thing. I always find it quite interesting that people will be like, I've never seen anything and I don't believe in these things. Well, I'm not surprised if that was the information that was out, because it was so watered down and tame, and
yes.
that however, there were a lot of Fortean publications. Britain in the 70s was a very strange place for particularly children's TV. Some of the programs that were on, like Children of the Stones and the like. We were raised in a culture of the supernatural. I remember one of the books at school that kept coming up over and over again that we were reading as a class was The Ghost of Thomas Kemp by Penelope Lively, which is still one of my all-time favourite books. If you've not read it, check it out, because it's about a boy who releases a poltergeist into his house. So I was quite interested in a lot of those kind of things, and books on horror movie monsters and anything to do with monsters. Ray Harryhausen films.
Hammer too.
Hammer. Well, that was much later. They started to show those late night on TV. I used to watch them, but I must have been about 17 or 18 at that time.
So they were in rerun, because they were 60s mostly, and early 70s.
Yeah, so I went through a period of just recording all of these things off TV. Those and any UFO film that I could find, and Doug McClure films. The Land That Time Forgot.
Yes. Oh man, I love that one.
At the Earth's Core, etc.
Yeah, the 70s were fantastic. There was a definite revival, but it was still hard to get real material. So that's why it was exciting to see things in the back of magazines, or just strange places to get the real deal books.
Well, I was absolutely blown away that there was this guy who had written this book about magic, and it was real. Because it was like, what do you mean? It didn't make any sense to me. Well, magic isn't real. It's not true. So who was this man? And then I suddenly discover this Ozzy Osbourne song, and it's like, oh my God, who is this Mr. Crowley? You know,
You mentioned that the Crowley and Magic poster, or the picture you saw with Magic with a K, whatever you'd said before.
Yeah, it was in an advert for a book club. So I don't know if you remember, they used to have all these books one after the other on different things.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have had some romance in there, a bit of Stephen King, but then slap bang in the middle, it was Aleister Crowley's magic.
Mm-hmm.
My eyes went wide.
I had a mini sinker on that. I found it posted this meme today.
If magic was easy, I would have told it to your mother.
Oh,
Probably would have done as well.
And it has Crowley and the word magic with a K in it, so I just thought that was interesting.
Grandmother, I would have thought was more appropriate, because he wasn't. He wasn't bothered, was he, about who, where, and when? I mean, he boasted about old ladies, didn't he?
I
don't remember.
I think as long as there was something on the end of his dick, he didn't care.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you mentioned tarot, and when you asked, how old were you at that point when your mother wouldn't let you bring tarot in, but you wanted a deck?
About 15 or 16. But you have to remember as well, you won't, because I haven't told you yet. How could you remember? I had carved a pentacle onto my arm with a compass in a chemistry class at school when I got bored. You know?
My.
So that was the one and only time that I've ever done anything remotely like self-harm. And I did it because, I really loved Slayer. When you're a teenager, these things are important, right?
Yes.
Don't look back and just think, what kind of a dickhead does that?
Yeah, that's metal all the way.
Oh yeah. I had a funny experience with that in Hereford Cathedral. My cousin Mark had come over from Canada, and every time I see him, which is very rare, he brings this up. We were in Hereford Cathedral, and Mum and Dad had gone off somewhere or other. They had Map Mundi in there, which is a really old medieval map. And while we were in the cathedral, my pentagram started to kind of like tingle. And it was just like, what the hell is that? And he was basically, it's gone red. And it would really, really come up. So having been fans of the Lost Boys, we decided we were going to try and find a font and cover my arm in holy water. And then when we got to the font, it was locked. And it was like, what? That's ridiculous. People might need holy water for all kinds of things, maybe. But so we decided to light a candle and say a prayer, get rid of it. And while we were sitting there, this homeless person came up and sat next to us. And out of the blue, he just sat there and he said, you don't believe in any of this, do you? This is all rubbish. You don't want to believe in any of this. It's not real. I'm homeless. People are giving them money. They never give me anything. You don't want to believe in any of this. And honestly, we freaked. And we were absolutely convinced that the devil had come in the guise of a homeless man and tried to persuade us to basically not douse the pentacle with holy water, etc. I have no explanation for any of that. Yes, it may have just been a coincidence. Yes, he may have just been a bitter bloke who was in there. Who knows? But it was just quite strange that it was at that time that we were wanting to do this.
I live for those experiences, as you probably know from listening. I mean, that is completely one of those things. If you're in a dream, that's one of those things that just calls you into lucidity because it's so strange and out of the usual.
Yeah.
And so many times, as we know through literature and oral tradition stories, masters, and we see it in Asian culture all over. Masters are homeless, or they seem to be considered lowly in societal standards, and there they are, out of nowhere with this something profound that takes you out of the nowness into a rather eternal moment of, this is strange. What do I do with this information? And can redirect you.
But, well, my cousin Mark, he's never really been interested in any of these things, as far as I remember. He was more into his ice hockey and chasing girls, as I remember. Yeah, he always brings this up, and he always says, "Wasn't that weird?" And there's times where I completely forget about it, and he'll have brought it up, and I will have been, yeah, that was really strange. I'd forgotten about that. But I've had a life full of very strange synchronicities and odd things like that, and I believe that they're almost like these are stepping stones.
Hmm.
You know how a computer, when you pressed return or it was running through a piece of code, it would beep and it would tell you basically, yes, that line is correct, or yes, you've done that correctly. I almost feel like these synchronicities are maybe a life telling you, yes, you're on the right track. No, you're not.
Yes.
I almost feel as though that's what happens. But some of them are very odd, very strange. And it's like, if it's a coincidence, it's one hell of a coincidence, and the odds are ridiculous.
Well, the nature of it alone, because because of the strangeness, calls you out of your normalcy. And so,
Yeah.
for me, I've always called them checkpoints in time, especially if there's a deja vu involved.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want to before we get too far down that road, tell us about how you experience dreaming. So, the landscape of it, tactile, sensate, all that.
I don't ever recall any smells, so that's one of the first things. But everything else is vivid colours, and tends to be a lot of my friends are in there. I've woken myself up laughing. There tends to be a lot of good humour and stuff in my dreams. But most importantly, over the past few years, almost every single dream I've had has taken place in this one city. That I have got to the point now where I actually know my way round. In fact, I've taken people out for a night in this place and taken them to pubs. I've been to the theatre there. I've been to the airport. I've taken planes.
Mm.
There's a great set of shops that sell all kinds of one of these dusty old shops like you were talking about before, full of all the books that I would ever want to buy, loads of vintage comics, vintage records, vintage toys, because I love old toys. I collect old toys.
Yes, me too.
My studio's full of them.
I'm surrounded by old toys.
I just picked up a 1970s Kermit the Frog, which I've got next to me here.
Oh, I see him behind your head. It's fantastic. Yeah.
But yeah, this place is amazing. And when I first started dreaming about it, I was a bit confused because I thought it was York, which is a city that I know quite well in this country. And I would be able to walk down this area called Coppergate, and this shop was on a street behind it that I used to go into. And then it became a bigger place and a different place, and it almost had more kind of a European look. And I became absolutely convinced it was Prague. Not that I'd ever been to Prague.
So it had an old feel.
Yeah. And down by the river, because it has a river, there was this is the maddest thing, there was an archaeological dig taking place, and they were digging up a Viking longship. And I'd have dream after dream after dream, and they were digging it up. And then suddenly I'd have a dream, and they basically were now building a museum to put it in. And then a while later, in other dreams, you would now be able to get Viking longship trips up the river. You could pay to go on these things. They had the Viking longship, the original, in the museum. and you could go around and take all this information in. And it's like, this is weird. This city is progressing in time at a similar rate to real life, and that's just weird. You know, the mind is an amazing thing, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how that works. Maybe this is an astral plane, another place that I dwell.
I am I can't
Parallel
write
reality.
fast enough. There's a lot of imagery with ships with you as well.
Hmm.
And this is the first time, this is why, especially why I'm fascinated by dream architecture and ask about this. You have a fully realized space here, a city, and with all this amazing stuff that is growing with you, but you've taken people. So I want to know, tell me about the airport and taking planes within your dream experience.
Yeah, that is really
Right there.
strange. The airport is at the top of a shopping mall, believe it or not.
Mhm.
And there must be several floors to this shopping mall. Now, the top of the airport connects to a monorail, so you can take the monorail and go off into the countryside. The airport, sometimes I've had dreams where I've been quite concerned that I'm going to be late and I'm going to miss my flight. I've had dreams where I've got there and I've realized I haven't got my passport with me. I've had dreams where I've suddenly discovered that I'm going on holiday with an ex-girlfriend and I don't really want to go on holiday with her. That's been awkward. There's yeah, and it's just like being in an airport, and then you go and you get onto the plane, um, and it's almost like a space rocket,
Mhm.
which is very odd, and it's almost like sitting in the nose of an aircraft rather than a nice comfy passenger seat right at the very front. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've gone to Canada several times to see family out there, um, and um, and come back, and yeah, it's just absolute functioning airport. But it's odd
When
that it's
you're
on top of this building, but on the outside you can't see the airport. It's just this mall with no airport. But once you get in there and you go to the top, there's an airport there.
when you're flying, when you're in flight in through this airport, through the portal of this airport, what is the sensation like?
Do you know? It's almost like being in a box. I don't remember any windows. There's seats there, obviously, and there's people sat with me, and um, and I just feel very bored. It's very dark and it's very grey.
Hmm.
So I have no idea. It's not really. It's not as if there's any films on the back of the seat in front of you, and you know, don't recall anyone bringing any food. The flights don't seem to take very long. You know, we would probably get to Canada in about 10 minutes.
So you're just aware you're going you're intentionally going, so you've gone to the airport, you're intentionally going somewhere. It's kind of an enclosed experience, and then you end up there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very intriguing.
It is. It's
What
very odd.
it is. It's very beautiful though. I love this as a new one for me. Yeah. So I want to, at this point, I guess, ask about flying in dreams for you outside of an airport. So do you fly outside of being in a box? Do you have you had movement where you fly, where you're soaring or floating?
That's a regular thing. I take off all the time. I show off to people. Um, you know, it's like, hey, watch this, and there I
Yeah.
am, and I will take off from the ground, and I will fly up and fly around trees, and then come back and go, what do you think of that? You know,
How do you do it? Do you do it like Superman, like Glinda?
no, I just levitate. I just take
You
off,
levitate.
and
Yeah.
and it feels like the most natural thing ever. Um, when I was younger, I used to dream that I was being picked up by some entity, and she, it used to force me into the ceiling and push me into the ceiling,
Mm.
and so I think that maybe that was the beginning of it. So, but it's funny that I don't really have any of those nightmares at all anymore. More like moral tests. That's what my dreams seem to be like now. But yeah, you can just take off.
This, give me a little more detail on this being that would help you fly at the beginning and push you through the ceiling even. Like, that's significant.
It felt like there was a poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
And it was living in this large walk-in wardrobe that we had in the downstairs of the house. And I would go downstairs and go into the kitchen, and our dog had a basket there, and I'd go down to see him, and then I would feel like I was being picked up and whirled around. It was like a whirlwind, and I would feel like I was being assaulted and pushed into the ceiling.
And did you get pushed through?
I don't recall anything like that. No, I just remember being particularly scared, and then feeling like I needed to do those kind of techniques that also work for sleep paralysis, get me out of it. So I would resist.
Was this a specific period of time, or does this still occur?
I haven't had that for a long, long time. No, I must have been about 17, 18, up to maybe mid-20s.
Okay.
I used to get that.
That's wonderfly fascinating. You're all this richness here. So, okay, back to your dream city. So this Viking longship, do you have, so this is kind of a genetic thing. Do you have Scandinavian ancestry at all?
Not that I know of. Well, I suppose obviously, yeah, I'm from the north of England. You know, almost certainly got Viking blood.
There would be some in there, yeah.
How about pirate ancestry? You got that pirate vibe going on.
No, but I have a baron. I have a baron who looks like me, and that was really messed up when I found the photo. I wasn't going to say a photograph, a painting. Found him on the internet.
What period of time did he live?
He was at the during James I, because his brother, who I knew was in the family somewhere, was a guy called George Herbert, who was one of the alchemical poets. He was when their father died, the poet John Donne, famous poet John Donne, who used to write a lot of alchemical poetry. He adopted them because he was a friend of their father's. So I suppose I'm related to him as such. But the eldest son, he became the Baron of Cherbury, Powys Castle, which is just over the border of Wales. And it was so strange because when I've looked on Wikipedia and I started tracing these people, and there was this painting of him, and he looks exactly like me when I was probably in my late 20s. And I was showing it to people, and they were saying, "Have you photoshopped your face on that, and why?" I was like, "No, that is actually this ancestor." Really odd.
Have you done any? This is kind of a magical question. Have you done any work with that at all, magically?
I haven't. No, I've just kind of like thought, well, no, this is really interesting. That even way back then in my family, which despite the upbringing with the Church of England, there is occultism and mysticism right the way back.
Yes.
So obviously, here we've got George Herbert, who's my mother always used to say, "Oh, he wrote really miserable hymns." When you actually look at his poetry, it's full of all this kind of the alchemical ideas.
Yeah. You went out again, your voice.
There, is it back on?
Yeah, you're back.
It's so weird. I've got to mute it and unmute it again to get the mic on.
The Baron's doing it.
Yeah. We did a show in here with Cobweb Mayers a while back, and he was doing some automatic drawing on the show, and you could feel the energies building up. It was really, really strange. And I've got things hanging from the ceiling, and while we were getting used to it, there was suddenly this cardboard cutout X-Wing fighter came off its hook on the ceiling, and the knot had untied itself, and it just literally flew down at him. So I'm very much aware of the fact that I've got things in this studio.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I get a lot of juice out of you. It feels, and your environment around you feels very similar to mine. It's very congruent with what I'm sitting in around here, and you've got juice,
Well,
John.
we were doing a tulpa experiment in here, which I decided to. Oh no, I was going to not talk about that. I keep forgetting to not talk about it.
Oh, yeah, right.
Tells me the more you talk about these things, the more people hear, the more the life that they are given. So I've done a real clanger. Can we edit all of that bit out?
Everyone forget what he just said. There's no tulpa.
I started getting a lot of weird shit happening. A lot of weird shit happening.
Yeah, and those things are supposed to be in secret, so.
Yeah. I was thinking like a manifestation of a black anonymous shape just outside, which was a bit freaky. And then in the house, I saw another one that looked like I think it was like a cat the size of it must have been like the size of a Springer Spaniel, jet black in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the tulpa that we were making was a black cat. So that freaked the shit out of me.
They're quite powerful, as you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think he's annoyed because I've stopped giving him milk.
Well, maybe you need to return with some cream or something, a little.
I recommend a banishment.
It doesn't work with a tulpa. Because by doing the banishment, you're giving it more energy.
More energy. You know,
Really?
you feed it.
Yeah. You've just got to ignore it. And it'll,
or you can turn it into a service if you want.
I wish.
And by doing it, what you're doing is you're appeasing it and you're giving it, which also gives it more life. So I don't know. This is all a different discussion. There's a lot.
A full blown tulpa, you're going to have a physical thing. Versus,
well, he's getting those.
Yeah. It was getting stronger, and we get a lot of odd things happening around the house anyway. I mean, we've got a spirit path running through the house, and so there's this one particular area of the house where a lot of activity is and things go missing and what have you.
Do you know if you guys are on a ley line or any ley lines?
Yeah.
I was just going to ask that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm right next to a church.
Oh yeah.
So
say no more. Say no more.
Right, Jerry. Is the church old?
Most churches, especially the old ones, are built on vortex points, like cross points on ley lines.
It's a Victorian church,
yes.
but the road is called Church Hill, and the line is directly parallel with the road, and in all my research into corpse roads and spirit paths, these are the roads that they used to take funerals on. There's no reason why that wasn't the original road. I mean, you just have no idea.
Is there a north door on the church?
This church, I think, is probably Victorian. It's a Roman Catholic church.
What's the name of it?
But still, the north door is important. And in Victorian times, you would still observe that. If it had,
there is. Of course, there is. Yeah.
See, there we go.
There's a north door, and then hang on, it must be west. The other door must be the west.
The main door.
Oh,
don't
those directions represent the archangels too? Like you got, I think north is Michael, no, east is Michael, and west is Gabriel.
Well, the north door is very specific within magic on a church, especially in England. It's a very specific thing.
I've never been in there, so I really don't know.
What's the name of the church? I'm sorry.
Sorry. What did you say, Jerry?
I just want to know what the name of the church was.
Maybe you should say that private. Put it in chat. It'll give people right where he's living.
Terrible. I actually can't remember. I've got a Victorian church overlooking my property, and I don't even know what it's called because I never go in.
Is your house Victorian or older?
No, it's built on the tennis court of a house which was huge. That used to belong to the local doctor. And it's a really, really big house. And up the road and across the road is the stables for this house. I don't know how old that is. Andy Pachoric, who runs the Folk Horror Revival, is the guy that started it off. He used to go to school at the school next to the church. He used to go in the house all the time because one of his friends lived there. So yeah, I mean, what do you expect? You live on a corpse road. Of course, you're going to get activity.
Yeah.
There was one occasion when I was so open. I was under a lot of stress at work, and I was sitting on the sofa, and I was so wired, and I was so open. The amount of spirit lights that were floating around the room, like plankton, as Jerry said earlier to me, it looked like it was snowing. It was
wow.
and I had to get out of the room, and I had to go and lie down in the dark because I just couldn't take it. This was the only way. I mean, I was incredibly stressed. So, I would have been totally like out of kilter with all of my energies and everything anyway. So it's not recommended. Do not go to that extreme to see spirit lights.
No. Are you experiencing any kind of, have you throughout your life, and I'm also looking for in the idea that maybe it could be amping, tinnitus in your ears, or static electricity or ringing?
I always have ringing in my ears, but as I was saying to you earlier, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, and it's a symptom of that. It seems like chronic fatigue syndrome has the symptoms of absolutely bloody everything. It's a nightmare.
It's a
People just
catch-all.
think that you're lazy and you're just tired, and it's like, God, if only you knew. But yeah, I get ringing all the time.
It's, for me, it's been amping up. I deal with a lot of fatigue because of the Hashimoto's, where people don't understand. It is you can't lift a hand when you're in extreme exhaustion. You literally, it's a full body experience, and it's hard. It's almost like paralysis, but it's just exhaustion.
Until I managed to finally get a doctor to listen to me and get me sorted out, get me to a clinic, get me the right medication. I thought my life was over. Couldn't do anything. I was just lying on the sofa all day long. I couldn't get off it.
Well, it's even exhausting laying. I mean, that's if you don't know what that kind of exhaustion is, it's just hard to find language to convey it. And that's why some people suffer silently with it.
I mean, I used to, when I was a university lecturer, I mean, my hours could be any time during the day, from 9 o'clock in the morning right the way to 7 o'clock. And I often didn't get lunch. And then I quite often wouldn't get home until about 9 o'clock. And then doing animation, I would then sit on the sofa with a laptop, and I would be doing some animation in something like After Effects or something. And I would get to maybe about 4 o'clock in the morning and think, I can do another hour. I don't have to get up until 7 o'clock. That was my life. Because animators are like that. They're very obsessive. I went from being able to do all of those things. And I was also swimming 2 miles a week as well. So I was on the go, and I liked being fit and what have you. But then suddenly have the fatigue syndrome. Terrible.
What triggered it, if you don't mind me asking?
Virus.
Yeah.
The virus. But I think it's done me the world of good. I have to say, I think it's been a spiritually important step, because it's humbled me. I think it's made me a nicer person. So I think
definitely respect your body more.
Yeah,
your vessel.
Although I do like chocolate.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Chocolate
will put me down. Did you notice a difference in your dreams before and after in your dream experience?
The city dreams have become far more common since. Far more common. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. So, and then within that, again, what about out of body experiences? So however you want to package that, astral projection, OBE, however you want to tag it.
It's real. It can happen. It's incredible, and I wish I could do it again. I'm not good at it. I know I have friends who don't want to be able to do this because it scares them, and they will just they will find themselves out of body whilst they're relaxing and they're in bed and they're going to sleep, and they fight it and they don't like it. And it's like, no, you've got to seize that. You've got a gift.
Yes.
I studied enlightenment meditation with a Buddhist monk several years back. I had strange experiences whilst meditating that we had to do to kind of like get us attuned and do a lot of meditations with moral elements to them, the conundrums, and that visualization quite often, that it really helped. But I sometimes would find myself being able to see the room and see through my eyes, and I could see everybody else around me doing the meditation, and I would be thinking, this shouldn't be happening. This isn't what we were supposed to be doing. Why has this happened? And that was very odd. And I'm aware that is said to be like a step towards it. The first time that I did it was through the binaural beats, the rhythms, and it was really underwhelming.
Why was it underwhelming?
I found myself in the hallway of my house floating over the wallpaper and looking at the wallpaper.
And still that was underwhelming for you? I mean, you were out of body.
I was really annoyed because there was a knock on the door and I shot back in with a whoosh, as you do. It feels like you're being sucked by a vacuum cleaner.
Yes, yes.
And I was pissed off because when I got to the door, it was somebody collecting money for or selling double glazing or something. And I was like, I've been trying to do this for years. I've finally done it. All I'm doing is floating over wallpaper, and here comes this bloody salesman.
Do you get the feeling that was synchronistic in a way to get you back in your body?
Maybe.
How old were you at that time?
Oh, could have been about 30, 32, 33, thereabouts.
Okay. Oh.
So yeah. I know you're thinking of 28 because I've listened to the show, but yeah, I did have my own 28 stuff going on, but it wasn't that.
Well, the 33 stuff's important too.
Oh, is it? Well, 33, the line of latitude. Possibly be interested. 33 degrees Freemasonry. I don't know if I was 33. That was a number I put. It was around that age. But
yeah.
the time that I did it was only recently in the studio, which has only been built for about 2 years now. And I had done a podcast, and it was early hours of the morning, and I was I couldn't. There was no way I was going to get to sleep because I'd just been doing a podcast, and I can't remember who it was that we were doing it with. So I put on some binaural beats. The sun was coming up, which was coming through the skylights in the studio, and I just literally closed my eyes, and the next minute I am standing in the garden, and there's a tree outside the studio which has been dead for years, and it's just the trunk, but because we've got a tree next to it, it creates a kind of an arch, so I just leave it, right? It looks nice. That tree had leaves and fruit on it. And all of its branches were there. It was alive. And I walked around this tree absolutely amazed. I took a walk around the garden, and at some point I literally just, as relaxed as anything, I just came back. And I was just absolutely stoked. I couldn't believe it. I finally had managed to do this and move around and experience these things. But I was fascinated by the fact that this tree is dead. But there it was. It had fruit hanging from it. It's a plum tree.
That's I find this interesting. I've talked to some people with that have had limbs, lost their limbs, and when they go OBE, they have their limbs. Of course, there's the phantom limb syndrome when they're
Yeah.
still in their flesh, and it's there, and that's a whole neurological thing. But that energy is still there. The thought of the form is still holds up, and so I find that an interesting parallel with the tree. When you were out walking, what did you have sensei experience? Like, was there a feeling of presence that you get in this waking state? Like a
No,
breeze, smells?
I was alone, and it had this amazing feeling of being more real than this. It had a lighter feeling to it. It was quite lysergic. The colours were almost the hue was turned up on everything. Um, yeah, and one of the things I do remember is the birds still tweeting, and I kind of remember moisture on the grass, so I must have been able to feel things. I don't remember much else other than just being absolutely blown away and overwhelmed at last time out. I have done it again. I have proven to myself that it's real. I want more. Um, but yeah, it's incredible. I just wish we all could live there rather than here.
Well, so with that thought, what do you think is going on with it? So because anyone that goes OBE, we know that the experience seems, more real than real.
Yeah. Like nature. The only other thing that I've had like it is, as I was saying before, I did the Enlightenment meditation course, and the very last meditation, which was really, really difficult, hard work to do, was the one where you return to source. So you go to the light, and so it's like nirvana in the Buddhist tradition, etc. That had a similar feel to it, but that was even more real. So I believe that's the actual state. And everything else is almost like a reality off it, and I can't explain it any other way than that. I don't know how to. You can't put these things into words. You certainly can't put the source into words. There is nothing that can possibly describe how amazing that is. The out of body experience was similar, but it was more dense. It felt like it was weightier. And then obviously here it feels much, much weightier, that everything is far more thick, gravity, dense.
Yeah, it almost feels sleazy here to me.
Well, actually, yeah, maybe that is a thing. Maybe there's something in that. It almost feels cleaner.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And I mean, I don't mean sleazy in a bad way. I pull up to it. Obviously, we're all here, but it does. There's something that feels, there's this. It just feels grungier here.
Mm. I think the internet is quite a good metaphor for all of this. There's basically other websites that you can go to, that you can flip here and you can flip there, and then go and have a look at this, and then go to another website, then go to another website, and that all of these things are connected in some kind of like a web or a mesh, a net. I actually think the internet is quite Gnostic in its whole structure, but as you say, sleazy. The internet is probably the sleaziest level of our reality that there is.
Well, at least pre-censorship.
Oh, there's some crazy people out there.
It's kind of growing
goodness.
into the I don't know, the thing that William Gibson kind of described in Neuromancer. It's the sea of depravity with information sprinkled about.
Yeah. Have you seen Hellraiser 2, where they actually go into the place where the Cenobites live? And basically it's a labyrinth of S&M and depravity and different cells where people are doing horrible things. Yeah, that's the internet, as far as I'm concerned. The Cenobites, they come from the internet. Interestingly enough, they are Men in Black. I don't know if anyone's ever
Yes.
considered that before. But,
Isn't that interesting?
I've been listening to an interview today about the Men in Black, so please go ahead.
Oh, nice sync
Hey,
there, Jer.
Yeah.
I was going through to my sister's recently with my dad, and we drove through this little town in Durham called Anfield Plain. And walking up the street was this old guy who was very, very, very thin, very, very, very pale. He had a great big fedora on, like as if he was dressed like he was a gangster in a 1930s black and white film. I mean, his jacket was almost like Zoot suit, and he was just dressed all in black. And we both looked at him and went, "Holy shit!" And my dad was like, "He's a Men in Black," and I was amazed that my dad knew what a Men in Black was. It was crazy. He even had the shades on, and I was thinking, "Oh, somebody's in trouble. What have they seen?" But,
they are real.
I had a very weird one, actually. We interviewed Paul Sinclair, the British ufologist, and the day after I did the show, I was going somewhere, came out of the gate for the house, and right on the corner, there was a jet black Mini with a very androgynous person sitting in the driver's seat who had all of those features that everybody describes: very pale, very gaunt, very thin. Can't tell if it's male or female. And I was just really freaked out because he was talking about all of these different things that have been happening down around the Scarborough area, to do with lights, and it seems very much like Skinwalker Ranch down there. It's a lot of very similar activity. And then the next day there was this person. But, I just thought it was interesting that they were in a jet black Mini. It's a bit of a step down.
What do you think? So, because you're open for this, like the whole observational reality thing, where we could be manifesting the thought forms we're feeding. Do you think that that's possible? So if you weren't, so I'm split on this because I had a Sasquatch experience, and I wasn't really a Sasquatch person.
Oh, wow.
And so, but my only point with that is that I wasn't feeding it at all. There was no thought about it. And then I had my experience. So, but on the other side of that, when we feed something and thought forms, when we're deep into stuff, how we can manifest these things. So you dive into the waters of Men in Black, and then you start to see them like synchronistically.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I had a very strange experience staying in the Red Lion pub in the middle of Avery Stone Circle. There's a village in the middle of Avery Stone Circle.
Mm-hmm.
I had a night of lights going over the bed, poltergeist activity, stones being thrown at the window, and I was actually trying to get to sleep. And there was the sound of wallpaper being torn off the wall, which I didn't even know was something associated with poltergeist activity. We knew the place was haunted, and we had wanted to go and stay in this haunted room. At the end of it all, when I was basically trying to negotiate, I thought that was the best way to deal with it. Look, we're all adults here. Let's all sit down and have a chat. I need to drive tomorrow. I'm going down to Cornwall. I'll be gone. I'll be out of your space. If you let me have a few hours sleep, don't worry about it. I'm off. I know you're annoyed with me. And at that point, I saw a hooded figure at the bottom of the bed. And I looked at it and I thought instantly, and I don't know why, I thought, a bit obvious. I'm in the middle of Avery Stone Circle, of course. I'm going to see something. It's going to be a druid or something. And at that point, it changed into a woman who looked like she was in a Jane Austen novel. She had the bonnet on and the kind of the shoulder cape on. And that just instantly made me think, wow, I've got these lights that people say that they see, and I've got this anomalous thing where I actually have questioned it. I've actually said, no, I don't want to see that. That's not accurate. And then it's changed itself into something else. And that made me suddenly realize all of these things that the paranormal is, we don't understand any of it. It's reflecting our thoughts back at ourselves. How is it communicating with our thoughts?
Yes.
And then projecting something back. So it didn't transform. I transformed it, if that makes sense. My subconscious on some level said, no, that's not right. That's too obvious. That's corny. Give us another one.
Or it's a projection of your own subconscious.
Yeah, I think that's what it's doing.
Mm.
I honestly do. And there's a really great book called Light Quest by Andrew Collins. And he's written this about a lot of things that happen around the Avebury Stone Circle, a lot of these balls of light, the UFO experiences, the crop circles, all of that culture that's going on. I mean, did you know that a lot of the guys who make the crop circles see these balls of light with them whilst they're making them?
Yeah, it's common, very common.
You know, that doesn't dissuade from the fact that these things are amazing. You know, it's almost as if they're being guided to do it. You know, there's a lot of that going around. This is a thin place. And I don't know what these balls of light are, but I've seen a lot of them in a lot of different places. People would have called them will o' the wisps, spirit, fairy. Now people are seeing them and they're saying it's UFOs. They behave in the same way that the UFOs are reported. These things flicker on and off as they're moving and feel almost look like they're static. They move from one point to another point, almost like teleportation. And I honestly believe that's what they are. And if they're capable of linking into your subconscious and feeding back at you, these people who are having communication with what they believe are alien entities, why is that any different to me seeing this ghost or Nish seeing the Bigfoot?
I think the organization of that whole thing lends itself more to being something more than Fortean phenomena.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the hierarchy. Think about people who talk about the Galactic Federation and the host of aliens that are behind that, plus all the types of different things that abduct them and the things they get told. That's far more than seeing a light in the sky.
Yeah.
So to me, it's always seemed like a different thing than what, you know, the paranormal things here.
Well, you know, for me, this is maybe a bit similar to when you see someone like James Randi show you how the psychic thing that you've just witnessed could be done as a magician and why it's fake. It's like just because you can do a similar thing in two different ways doesn't necessarily mean that both of them are, or one of them is invalid. You know,
right? Well, he's
so
James
why
Randi.
can't these balls of light be one thing and another thing? I don't see what.
Absolutely can be. I wasn't trying to say it wasn't.
Oh, no, sorry, I wasn't criticizing you, Jerry.
No, not at all. Yeah, I would just make it the point that I think that it seems more, if you want to put it this way, more intelligent. The people who get abducted and the entities they encounter seem to have more of a structure, a character behind them. Mm. It's better written script, if you will, than say
than a ghost.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we had a very strange one. I was living down in Derbyshire. Our house was on the side of an old medieval dam. And there was one night that we had this ball of light, huge ball of light turn up above the dam. I was looking in the wrong direction, as I always am when these things happen. So I didn't see it, but I just saw the effect of it. My then partner, she saw it explode, and it became daylight for must have been about 10 seconds. And all of the fishermen who were around the dam suddenly started screaming, "What was that? What was that? What was that?" Now, weird thing that happened the next night was that I woke up during the night and I went to the window because I thought I had seen another light outside. So I thought I'd go and have a look. And that was all I remembered. The next day, I told my partner this had happened. And she said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You were asleep." She said, "I saw the light and I got up and I went and looked out of the window." And we were both really freaked out by this. Because then obviously we had this thing of, well, I don't remember going back to bed, do you? So it was very, very, very odd. And then I started having these very vivid dreams that I was on a mothership. And I know how stupid this sounds, but I had them. There were very tall beings, very human there with very large heads, dressed in clothing that you would expect to see on Star Trek. The entire mothership looked like it was from Star Trek. It felt like there was a community of people there. They were observing us, and we were doing things like puzzles. We were all sat together in this very plush environment doing puzzles, and these beings were watching us. And I kept having these dreams all of the time. And, you know, I know that it sounds absolutely like contactee experience or abduction or something. I know it does.
How old were you when that was happening?
Oh, that was about 6 years ago. About 6 years ago.
Because I find this significant. Right. We can wrap it in many different types of packet. You know, we can package it in a different way for each person's view, certainly. But ultimately, these experiences are common and people are talking about them more. So 6 years ago, what... I just want to dive into this. I would like to get this thoroughly sussed out. What was there anything significant going on in your dayside life?
Yeah. She was very manipulative and very controlling, and used to feed me information that wouldn't be true. She used to triangulate a lot. It was a little bit like living with a religious cult leader, and she was a medium. She ended up doing things for television over here. Plus, I'd gone over to Thailand to stay with her friend Neil over there in Chiang Mai, where we had a month of basically doing meditation and what have you. And he was a physical medium, so there was an opportunity to kind of have a circle. And when I remember back, one of the things that I saw over him physically was one of these guys with a very, very large bald head. But they weren't greys or anything like that. They looked very human. So yeah, I mean, I've got drawings of them that I was doing. That was one of the things that I was actually there doing while he was in the physical mediumship. I was drawing what was coming over him.
Do you have those drawings posted anywhere?
I don't, but I shall dig them out.
I would be, please send me copies of them, because I also draw the stuff I encounter in these experiences, and I'm interested to see them.
So is it a lot of first impression stuff that you get that drives your art in those cases?
Well, I have done it in a spiritualist setting. I have done it so that basically when somebody is kind of like giving a message, in the meantime I've been drawing, and I've had people in tears doing that when they've actually looked at it, and it's kind of like, oh my God, you've even drawn my dad's tie.
Yeah.
Things like this. And it's like, and I don't know what I'm drawing. What will come into my head is, right, this guy looks like Fred Astaire. So what I'm drawing is is my depiction of, so it comes as a kind of like a flash image.
Or an idea.
Or an idea. Or words, and the words morph. This is the reason why you tend to see a lot of mediums kind of like going, it's and then they keep changing the word, and people go, well, it's obviously fake. They're doing cold reading. But a lot of the time you get a sounds like. I'm not defending fake mediums in any way whatsoever. I have seen these people at work. with paranormal investigations. Some of the guys from Most Haunted have been there when they've faked stuff.
Yeah,
You
there's a
know,
lot of that.
if they're on TV, they're fake. I think that's the answer.
Exactly. And, you know, if you were really, truly interested in hunting ghosts, you wouldn't act like an asshole in a TV show like that.
Oh, that guy that gets himself slammed into lockers and funeral homes and stuff. I mean, what the hell's going on with it?
I don't watch any of that stuff.
Has space left for demons in his body? I don't know.
He's making a lot of money out of it. I saw him trap a demon in a mirror. They chased it down a corridor with noise, I think, and then they trapped it in a mirror, and then they smashed the mirror to get rid of it. And I was just there thinking, what the fuck?
I saw that on Constantine in the movie.
Yes, Jerry, yes, it was in the movie.
Of course it was.
Oh, is that where he's got it from?
Yeah. Oh, man, that's... Oh, I don't watch that, whatever show you guys are talking about.
I don't even know what it's called.
Constantine.
It's terrible. It's so fake. But no, you mentioned John Constantine. He was my hero. I wanted to be John Constantine.
Did you see the one season series they put out in 2012?
I saw the first episode and then I couldn't find any of them because I don't know if they've been put on British television. So I was watching them on that sleazy internet.
Remind me after the show and I could show you a place where they're at. But yeah, the show got canceled. It's really good. It's interesting.
It's surprisingly good, yeah.
It wasn't Keanu Reeves. He looked like...
Matt Ryan is the guy's name. And they've revived the character. Well, so DC has split into, I don't know, they've got a bunch of different shows, right? Like The Flash and Arrow and Supergirl. They have this other show called DC Legends of Tomorrow. And the premise of the show is that they're a time-traveling superhero group that repair aberrations in the timeline.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's my job.
Well, it's their job too. Maybe you can get on their ship. But
what do they want? What do they want? A medal?
The point being that this new season that's coming out, I believe it's season 6 or 8, I don't remember. It's up there, right? John Constantine is now a crew member.
Yeah. Well, he started in Swamp Thing, didn't he?
Yes.
I've never read those issues. I'm still in the Bernie Wrightson issues of Swamp Thing. I haven't got as far as Alan Moore yet. I did buy a few back in the 80s.
I just really thought it was interesting that they, in the last couple of seasons of the show, they've started battling magical creatures and their technology doesn't help. So that's why they recruited Constantine to help. And so now it's a lot of, well, the last couple episodes have been very demon related. They have a lot of demons in that show. It's real interesting. It really is.
But the Hellblazer comics, particularly the first ones, because the artist was from the northeast of England, where I'm based, a lot of the things that were in those were based around where I'm living. So at the time, I was living very close to a seaside town called Saltburn by the Sea. And Constantine ended up there quite regularly. There was an issue where they were very much like the Wicker Man that was based down that way.
I think I had a pen pal there when I was a kid.
Original Wicker Man?
In Saltburn by the Sea. It's
a beautiful place. I've got so many friends that live there. It's great.
So this is another synchro. I'm getting like super chills today. It's crazy. Jay Dyer put out a video today about how Wicker Man, the movie, is the greatest movie ever made.
Which one, though? The original or the
Nick Cage one?
I've not seen the remake. I've not seen it.
I don't like that remake. The original with Christopher in it, the 73, that's the Wicker Man.
Yeah. Do you know, somebody said to me years ago that it was their favorite musical. And I was like, what are you talking about?
The music's amazing in it.
But it made me suddenly realize, holy shit, it is. It's not a horror film. It's a musical.
Yes.
With the most amazing music.
Really, truly. All of it. That's a masterwork.
That's how I got into the Incredible String Band, because I was desperate to find music that sounded like the Wicker Man. And yeah, adore them.
Oh, yeah. That's on my top 10 all-time favorite films.
My friend Darren's got a piece of it. Until fairly recently, you could still go up onto that hillside, and there were parts of the Wicker Man still in the ground. You could dig them up. somebody dug a piece up and gave it to him.
Wow, from the 70s. That's amazing. That's
He's
great.
one of the main guys over at the Folk Horror Revival, Darren Charles. So yeah, lucky man.
So I want to talk about sleep paralysis with you.
Yeah, horrible, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting, at least. What's your experience with it?
The first time that it happened to me, I swear I thought I was being raped by a demon. It was absolutely horrendous. It was this guy lying on top of me, pushing me from the shoulders down into the bed. I could not get away. And he had an luminous green rectangle around his eyes. It was like face paint or something. And I just remember these glowing eyes, and he was looking at me and he was saying, "You." That's all he said. And I realized I could defeat it because I was just saying no to him. And it released. And then I went through a big Christian phase. After that, I became a bit of a happy, clappy, born-again Christian, which didn't last. And when I would get sleep paralysis, I would find that basically binding it worked. So I bind you in the blood of the martyrs. I bind you in the blood of Jesus Christ. And then you basically move it on, pass it on to the spirit, and that would work.
Does that work every time?
Yeah. And then I read a Robert Anton Wilson interview in the Fortean Times. This must have been about 1994. And he talked about sleep paralysis. I'd never heard of it. And I suddenly was like, oh my God, that's what happened to me. So now that I was aware what it was, as Heath said, it was you pulling anything out of your monster library in your subconscious. That is your projection. That's what it's going to be. And he was talking about the fixation with the eyes, which suddenly made sense. This guy's got glowing green eyes, a rectangle, you know. But I would get them where it was just somebody standing by the door to the room and just not moving. And that would scare the crap out of me. That was almost worse than the person on top of me trying to basically push me into the bed.
I heard
It was
someone
probably around that time. Sorry that I had the poltergeist dreams where I was being pushed into the ceiling. Sorry, Jerry.
No, it's okay. Someone once told me that when that happened, they realized that the figure by the door was their astral or etheric body waiting for them to let go. Like, come on, let's go. You know, you're still trapped in your body, but it's half out.
Well, here you go. You'll like this then. Because if that was a projection of yourself there, I had one. I was writing a piece, fiction, and there was a character that had literally, she was the body that had been dragged out of the canal. She was drowned. And so it was like an investigation into how she died. I can't say this was a great work of art. I don't think I even finished it. But I had sleep paralysis, and guess who was there standing at the door? And she even had pondweed hanging off her.
Oh my!
And she
like
looked
Jenny's green teeth.
she looked pissed off. She was really not happy with me, and I realized the reason why she's not happy with me is because I've killed her. And I suddenly felt very responsible, and of course it passed off, and I got rid of it. And you realise that it's a dream and all of that. I told a friend of mine, and he said, "You've got a better story there." I was like, "Yeah, you're damn right." So that's been a novel I've been working on for a long time. Authors, I've discovered, do see their characters quite a lot.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, you've heard about Grant Morrison's whole thing with the Invisibles, right?
Of course. Well, he projected the Invisibles. That was a work of sigil magic.
Right.
But he didn't himself laid, apparently.
Well, originally, I don't think he intended it to be that. I think it was more of a discovery. Back to initiation, he initiated himself doing that ritual, or that's the hypersigil, or that comic book, however you want to look at it, right? Made all these things manifest in his reality.
I adored that.
Allegedly.
Comic. Yeah, It's a special piece of work.
It is.
Is that comic? I mean, yes, it is pretty much the Illuminatus trilogy, but I don't see why the two can't sit next to each other.
Sure, different takes on.
Yeah, but yeah. Apparently, we were talking about John Constantine. Alan Moore has seen John Constantine twice. I don't know if you knew that. Once was in a sandwich bar. He was sitting down in a cafe eating a sandwich, and Constantine walked in, turned and smiled at him, and then walked into another part of the cafe. And he said he was too freaked out to go after him, and he said he wishes that he had, but he was a bit too freaked out. But he said it made him realise that Constantine was Sting, because the guy looked at the spitting image of Sting, and that's what he realised. Oh, that's what I've been writing about. He also had a backpack with him, which he then said, "Why didn't I ever give him a backpack? That's obvious. He would have a backpack." The next time he saw him was after a magical ritual. He'd gone into the kitchen to make everybody present a cup of tea, which I love, because that's not the kind of thing you see on a Hammer film. It's after they've done a ritual, they'll just go and have a brew. Yeah.
Have you met Moore at all?
I would love to.
Yeah, me too.
I know people who know him. My sister's met him a long time ago, probably before The Killing Joke came out, back in the 80s.
If you ever get him on your podcast,
I would love to. Hey, I mean, I think getting hold of him would be very difficult. Getting him to agree to it would be difficult.
I don't think he has an internet account, right? But who knows?
I came across one interview he'd done on a podcast. That's where I got this information from about him witnessing Constantine.
He does a lot of podcast interviews.
Yeah. So. I've seen him perform. A few years back, he did a performance with Stephen O'Malley from the band Sun, the Noise Band. And I saw him do that it was like a working. It was between two paintings that were very similar. One by John Martin, and I can't remember who the other one was by. It was all basically about landscape of England with these paintings. It was in an art gallery. Then the next night they did it again, and they were joined by FM Einheit from the German experimental noise band that I can never remember the name of. New Bartzen something.
Saying the Art of Noise.
No, Niebuhr.
Eine Niebuhr.
Yes, you've made me lose it. Eitzenberg. Oh, geez. New
Barton.
Eitzenberg. Oh, they're amazing. They're
they are. Well, he was playing
Einsterzend New Baden.
That's the fella.
Yes. Thank you, Jerry. Always to the rescue.
He was playing this spring with a circular saw and getting a note out of it, and then he piled sea coal on top of a metal strip which was on breeze blocks, and he was beating it with a hammer. I got hit in the eye because I was on the front row.
Oh dear.
And then over the backdrop, over the top of this, while Moore is reading and Stephen O'Malley's on this guitar, the backdrop was done by some famous video person who I don't know, but she was showing bits from Polanski's Cul-de-sac, because that was filmed up here, and also Macbeth and bits from the Michael Caine film Get Carter. So all very ominous and strange. It was absolutely fantastic.
It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when it ends, you think, I didn't understand any of that, but I feel like my life has changed.
Yes.
And I don't know why.
I love that kind of junk thing too, though. Like the Bear Engel experience in Scandinavia. He's always experimenting with crazy. His band before he went on sounds like Hero Torpedo. They're just making music with crazy stuff. I want to get to ghosts or disembodied spirits in your dream world, and possibly those you've known in life.
I had she was a woman who was always in a white dress, and she had very curly hair, very pointed nose. If you can imagine Margaret Thatcher, I mean, she was a nightmare in her own right, but she was always haunting this room in this house. And I was always going up the stairs and going down this corridor to this room. And sometimes I was having to stay in this house and I was having to sleep in the room. And she would always be there and she would always attack me. She was terrifying. And because I kept having that dream, I felt like there was a fear that I had to get over.
Mm-hmm.
So that is when I started to do ghost hunting. And
really? That's what started that?
Yeah, and it stopped it, because now it was like I faced that fear of the nasty ghost.
Yes.
I've been to these horrible, nasty, haunted places. I have stayed the night. I've done the job of the sensitive, and it put it to rest. And when it put it to rest, it suddenly made me realize, and I don't know why I didn't recognize it before, that this was my grandparents' house. And the room that I was staying in was the room I always used to sleep in, which would be my dad's bedroom when he was a kid. Not only that, I realized that the ghost was actually a teacher that I had at primary school, who basically she shouldn't have been teaching. She just hated kids.
I think that can be said of all nuns too.
Yeah. I remember her picking a kid up and smashing her head on the wall.
Oh my, yeah.
You know.
Angry. Yeah.
And then a friend of mine ran home out of school because he was so terrified of her. Got hit by a car on the way home, broke his arm. So yeah, and I just realised that basically, for some reason, I must have not wanted to stay in my grandparents' house for some reason at some point, and that had stayed with me, and it combined with this woman, and so it became this haunted house. When the dreams were fading and I was starting to defeat her, the house was now almost like it was made out of perspex, and I could see through all of the rooms, and I could see her trying to get away from me, and I was following her. But yeah, I mean, even when I was a little kid, there was a witch that used to fly down the stairs in my dreams and chase me. So I must have had this. You know, the Wicked Witch of the West scared the life out of me.
Of the West. So is she green?
Yeah, but that's clearly where it's come from. It's come from watching The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. You're front loaded. I like the story with the ghostly figure, though, that was the teacher in the end. How you were able to unravel the symbology as it was playing out at some point.
Well, I think that a lot of that came from doing the enlightenment meditation, because that's what you do with every stage up to the point where you're working with chakra points, and then channeling energy and moving energy around your body, because this is the process of then understanding how to do the source meditation, because you use that energy to push yourself out of the top of the head, which takes ages. It's hard, very, very hard. I've only achieved it twice. I've never been able to do it again. And but yeah, that was one of the things that each week we would have to do things like we would have to bring something which was really horrible with us, like something really moldy, something that has been underneath the cupboard of the kitchen sink for years that you've completely forgotten about. And he wanted us to bring this horrible thing, whatever it was, with us, and then we had to meditate holding it and feel the texture of it and go, right, well, what is it about it that's so repulsive? And so it was constantly questioning things and finding your own pathway through your subconscious. You know, it was intense, but it was absolutely amazing.
I'd heard these similar stories with great healings with people who have had. I'm really interested in the dying experience, especially how it plays out with dreams, but also in people's personal lives. And with people that have been very sick, and of course I go right in for these subjects, and almost always they want to engage the stories to people around you that are like, oh, why, how can you do that? Anyway, so I have heard with great healings, there have been in some people's dreams these monstrous or terrifying figures that were just, full on nightmarish experiences. And as they move through a healing process, the monsters or demons or whatever you want to call them would actually transform as they were getting healed, as they were healing. Really, they're healing themselves. And ultimately, in the end, these monstrous things were actually not monstrous, and they were either like helping. It could be projections of self, however you want to view it, but they ended up being friendly towards them. Some people saw them as ultimately as being angels. Some people saw them as spirit guides, but they initially were nasty, terrible, and terrifying. And once they got healed, that was the whole point, was to move through why are you going through this process, and what is at the core of it. And these people survived some of them terrible cancer.
The mind is it's just such a powerful and amazing thing. I can't even start to understand it. I'm not a psychologist.
Well, I don't think even people that study this stuff, or all the great masters that study this stuff, I am still a believer these are mysteries. And there is, no matter how much science people want to hang around it, these are untouchable mysteries that the common person has access to. And so it's really important to not get stuck on the masters in this, I think anywhere, but in this field in particular, when we're talking about dreams and death and dying and alternate realities.
It very often feels to me that basically when there is something that is clearly in your dream, which is niggling you and it is negative, it's like, this is your chance to deal with something. Instead of treating this as being something to be scared of and run away from, it's like the dream that I had the other night that I was telling Jerry about, where I killed someone.
Yes, will you share that with us now?
Yeah. I was really pissed off with Andy, who runs the Folk Horror Revival, because in my dream, we were walking somewhere and he suddenly decided to go and live in this dingy, horrible flat. And he left me to walk home in the rain, which is a ridiculous premise because I'm a middle-aged man. Why would I care in reality? But in the dream, it was like, I can't believe this. So I was walking home, and an old school friend suddenly appeared and was with me. And there was this guy walking towards us, so I just decided to kill him. And I murdered him in the street. And then this was like a film. There were like sequences, like suddenly I'm not in the street. I'm at home, and on the news, they're talking about the fact that this murder's happened. So now I'm thinking, oh no, I hope they haven't got any CCTV footage. How do I get away with this? And then I started thinking, oh, my friend was there. Oh, I've got a loose link there. What am I going to do? He could grass me up. So I'm thinking basically, suddenly, wait, I can kill him. And then I started thinking, no, this is going to get out of control. I can't start killing people, otherwise I'll just keep having to kill people. So the next thing, in the newspapers and on the TV, this lad that I've murdered, his mother is on there crying and wanting people to find the murderer. And I even thought, I'll go murder her. And then on another news report, it comes back, she has now been arrested for killing him. And so I'm now left with the dilemma of thinking, well, I've got away with this. And then I've got the guilt of thinking an innocent person is going to jail. And it's my responsibility. I've got to give myself up. And then I just keep thinking, well, no, because I've got away with it. So why would I let her go to jail because I don't know her? And then I'm thinking, no, that is the most selfish thing I've ever thought. So I keep going through a lot of these emotions and odd feelings, a lot of which aren't natural because I'm not a violent person. I have never killed anybody. I don't intend to either. So it then transpires that basically that I need to basically do something about it. I start seeing myself now in prison. I'm in a maximum security American prison. Everyone's wearing orange jumpsuits, and I'm now having to fight. It's because I've just entered the prison, and straight away somebody's decided to basically fight me, and I'm having to stand up for myself, otherwise I'll become the victim, and I don't want to do that. And then I'm back at home. I've been there. I've experienced the prison. I'm back out of that, and then I go and give myself up, and I wake up. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to write this down. And I was thinking, oh, Nox Mente, I could talk about that. And so I just went on Facebook and messaged Jerry half asleep and wrote this whole dream down. And I just thought afterwards, what the hell is he going to think of me? So I went and reread it tonight. And I don't even know if I've got it all down there, but I had to remind myself because it had gotten it all. But yeah, it was like being it was like an initiatory step. It's like, how are you going to deal with this situation? It's like the kind of thing that people who've been abducted by aliens say that they experience, that they're put into this test, you know? And yeah, and I think that it's really interesting. So rather than kind of like fight the thing that's in your dream, experience it, because these are like your testing ground for your morality, for your ethics. I think it's quite an important thing. Don't be scared of them. You know, discover what it's like to punch it, to fight it, then discover what it's like to walk away from it and surrender and all of those things. And if you can experience it from different angles, this is what we were taught in the Enlightenment meditation. Experience these things from all angles, all morality, and even all forms of life. You know, imagine yourself being an animal. Why would you be doing that in this instance if you were a fox or something? You just try and experience it as much as you can. And then you actually come out of it thinking, I've really learned something from this, something really important. What I learned from that dream was quite obvious. You don't kill people. You know, it's not just the killing the person, it's the thing that happens afterwards. You're having to deal with the paranoia and the fallout, and then going to prison and all of that. I mean, I just felt like I'd been through the whole thing. Yeah. I don't need to do it now. I don't need to experience it in real life.
That's good.
I love that example, and it is about, I mean, there's so many ways these things can unravel, and certainly the psychological approach is one way, and how these reverberations just play out through our lives, and how we find a sense of transcendence through the whole process as well. And yet I'm also on board with 100% of the otherworldliness, the other dimension, the other reality aspect of it. This is why these mysteries are so appealing and juicy to explore. And the more we talk about these things, the more we normalize it, the deeper this experience gets, especially in waking life, in my opinion. Because we're making it conscious. We're taking dark content and bringing it forth. And so it's going to be an alchemical experience is underway then. A spiritual experience is happening at that point.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. And it's almost, it feels to me like we're put into an environment to then experience something. So I'm not sure why I get my city, because sometimes that's fantastic. I'm a tourist. I'm just walking around. There's not really anything to learn. You know, it's almost like I'm on holiday in this place that clearly just represents me as a whole. Yeah, I think it is interesting that we are kind of like put in environments. It's like the holodeck in Star Trek.
Yes.
You
Oh
know?
man, isn't that the classic example?
Yeah. So I mean,
Another synchro there. I was just explaining about a holodeck theory the other day, like yesterday or the night before. Yeah.
This happens all of the time. Whenever I do these podcasts, I was on Conspiranormal, and for no apparent reason, I told them that I was the Count de Saint Germain for some reason, and they freaked because they had just been told the show, and it was like, I don't even know why I said it. I tell you, one of the things before the show, for some reason, I kept getting Thin Lizzy songs in my head. I don't suppose either of you have been listening to Thin Lizzy, because I never do.
Tonight there's gonna be a jailbreak.
I have been listening to 70s music this week.
Have you heard Dancing in the Moonlight by Thin Lizzy?
Yes.
It turned up. Because I don't know why it was in my head.
I have one last question, and before we maybe move on, is your ideas on death and what is that state of consciousness? How does that play into this? Are we dead now and we're just reliving things? Is there, just in general, what is going on with the idea of death, and what do you think it all is?
When I had that experience, when I did the source meditation, I found myself surrounded by white light. There was nothing there but white light, and I was white light. And there was a vibration, like a noise. And I suddenly felt alert, like I had woken up or emerged from it. And I went, oh, where am I? And then I suddenly thought, oh, I'm back here again. And as soon as I thought that, I literally had that whole thing of being sucked back into the real world again with a wham, just like you get with astral projection or out of body experience, whatever you want to call it. I felt like that was real. I felt like that is where I had come from originally. I felt as though I belonged there. I felt as though I was part of it all. Now, you can call that God, you can call it Nirvana, you can call it whatever you want, the source. That just felt like that was reality. That was the real thing. And, as the Buddhists say, the world that we usually see isn't real, it's imaginary, it's fake. And that is exactly how it felt. And I just feel as though that whole explanation that you get from Gnosticism and from Buddhism, that we're almost like a shard of this source, and we're in this plane to experience things, and to learn and take that information back. And I have often thought, maybe is this what we do when we actually dream? Because we don't know what we're actually doing for most of the time that we are asleep. It didn't make any sense to me as to why I thought, oh, I'm back here again. I knew this place. I recognized this place. Even though I knew that I wasn't even human there. There was no physical body. And now, whether or not that source can send shards to reality as we see it without a physical body, I don't know. I mean, in some traditions, it's described that basically beings came down in the form of these balls of light and entered animals and what have you, and that's basically how civilization began. Sounds absolutely crazy, but that it rings a bell with that whole meditation experience.
And it all happened on a flat Earth?
Well, it doesn't matter what shape it is. It's not real.
I know. I was teasing.
It could be a triangular Earth. You would never know. We might get far enough out and discover that we're actually a small speck printed on the wrapper of a Toblerone. And we're actually
I always love that. Yes,
a prism. It's not flat. It's a prism. I don't know. I just don't know. Don't ask me. Don't follow me. I'm not the Messiah. I'm a very naughty boy.
I appreciate that. Yes.
It's like us.
Yes, that's where we are. And that's like one of the things, one of our laurels here is that we're all equal in this experience.
Yeah.
And I appreciate people that make it a life study and go and jump through all the hoops, and there are great names. I'm not going to throw them out. I appreciate the science being done and the theories, but in the end, we should not allow that to co-opt and take it away from us, the
No.
common folk. We have access to this, and we have the right to ponder and theorize on our own through our own personal experience. And this is what saddens me in culture in general, is how we give away our power to those with titles and those that come forward saying, I've studied this, therefore I am the answer.
Yeah.
This is, this is something we all have access to.
I obviously worked in academia. A lot of academics have got huge egos, and you just wonder why. Because you can learn from all kinds of people, important lessons from all kinds of people. On my travels, I've learned things from people who've got absolutely no qualifications that we would recognise at all. I've been all around the world. I've been to a couple of Arabic countries and what have you, and seen things happening on the streets of Cairo that will never leave me. I probably learned more from being lost in Cairo than
Did any of those bad experiences involve a fez?
No, I bought my fez in Camden Market.
Okay.
No, I don't remember really seeing anybody wearing a fez in Egypt. I had this incredible experience on the Giza Plateau. I had to bribe two policemen to leave me alone, and I was taken by these two lads through this Islamic graveyard and out the other side onto the Giza Plateau, and I was absolutely desperate to go to the loo. So I said to them, where? And they were like, it's a desert, anywhere you want, So being British, being from Western, I decided to use the wall to urinate against. And the next thing that I know, here is this policeman, and he's got a machine gun and he's pointing it at me, and I'm still in the middle of the whiz. So we just held out his hand and asked for money. I gave him money.
Oh my God.
No, seriously, I had no real understanding of Islam or anything like that, and I feel absolutely dreadful that I did that. And I know for a fact that if IS knew that I had weed on on the wall of an Islamic cemetery, my life would not be worth living.
Oh, jeez.
But then after that, I ended up in an archaeological dig where there weren't any archaeologists around. They hadn't finished. I wasn't supposed to be in there. They bribed another guy so that we could go in. I was in these rooms, and they were great big shafts leading right the way underground. You could see tunnels down there. So that's all true. I have seen it with my own eyes. And then I went and had a look at the pyramids. I didn't go in. I'd love to go back and go in. But the place where I was taken, as they said to me, is the only place on the plateau where there are hieroglyphics. And it's true, there aren't any in the pyramids. The Sphinx is a lot smaller than I thought. Anyway.
I heard someone talking about that too. It's interesting that there aren't any hieroglyphics in the pyramids. It almost screams that the Egyptians were transient, that they didn't build them, or they came upon them like the Sphinx was before their time.
But they had a legend of that. I mean, the thing is, this is one of the things that blows me away. If you want to know what some of these things are, ask the locals.
Right.
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
That's not a weird thing to do, But for centuries, we've had these British twerps walking around and saying, "Oh, jolly ho, what's this? Oh, we'll have that," and helping themselves and bringing it back, and then people trying to work out what it says. Hang on a minute, why didn't you ask the bloke who was sat by it?
Yes.
Worse than that is that the archaeological positions today are all based on a report by one dude, you know, from the 1800s. Never verified. It was just something that got recorded and then became fact that was built upon. So a lot of the ancient Egyptian history that we were taught, it was all basically conjecture.
I mean, God knows how on earth they were built. I mean, honestly, I mean, the ramp to get those bricks to the top. I don't know. I mean, you could move things easily with a fulcrum, and I've seen that done. I've seen a guy doing that, showing how that coral, what is it called?
Coral
The Coral
Castle. Yeah.
And he was
Florida.
moving those blocks single-handed,
Yep.
just with fulcrum. It is possible. You don't need any strange technology to move these things. You can do it with a little cone.
It could very easily be some kind of natural science effect that we don't know about, or is, you know, hidden.
But I mean, how'd you get to the top and put the top one on? I mean, these things are huge.
In a Vimana, how else would you get there?
What did you say? A ladder?
In a Vimana.
Oh, I thought you said a ladder. Hold it up. A hell of a bloody ladder. I tried climbing up the second one. I didn't get very far. But what was weird was on the way back. I mean, this was like something out of a Monty Python sketch. There was a speck on the horizon that kept getting nearer and nearer to me. And eventually it was this bloke on a donkey. I was on the back of a camel with one of the lads, and there was one of the other lads was with a donkey. I mean, this whole place it was like tattooing. I mean, it was just marvelous to be there. But here comes this guy on a donkey, and he eventually comes up, and the lads are trying to get rid of him. And I'm like, no, leave him. What does he want? And he got off his donkey, and he lifted up the side of the saddle. He had a drinks cooler, and he opened it up, and he gave me a can of 7-Up.
Oh, he sounds awesome.
No,
Very nice.
I was always led to believe there were people wandering around the Sahara Desert going, water. Guys on donkeys.
with sodas. It's hilarious.
I mean, seriously, you can learn more from going to experience some of these strange places and these strange people than you're ever going to learn from academia.
Well, the pyramids are right there in the middle. I mean, the city is all right there. There's a strip mall, for God's sake.
Yeah, there's a 4-lane motorway, 4 lanes on each side, running straight through the middle of Cairo, and there's no way of getting from one side to the other side unless you get a taxi or a car. So I found myself stranded because I had no money for the taxi, and it had just gone because Egyptians are clever, and
Yes.
they'll have every penny off you that they can, and you won't even know. They are the cleverest people on earth. You know, I completely believe that they built the pyramids because they are the cleverest people on earth. And I mean, I had money taken left, right, and centre. It actually got to the point where I was actually quite enjoying watching the scams that they were trying to pull on me, and how they would then riddle it to get more. So I actually, I mean, I wasn't in despair being scammed. I found it quite interesting because it's just basically sleight of hand and magic tricks.
Yes. Yes.
The origins of it. Yeah, I had to sell a ring to kind of like get money to get a taxi to get back, and I was absolutely terrified. And I had this amazing thing happen. I had these children who were just absolutely filthy, and they were naked. This little girl had dreadlocks in her hair, not because of fashion or Rastafarianism. It was just how her hair had ended up from neglect. I could see these guys kind of like circling me. I knew I was going to get robbed. A guy with a broom came up and swept the kids away for me, and then asked me for money. And I was telling him to stop hitting kids. And I suddenly thought, I am as far away from home ever as I'd gone up to Cairo from Luxor, got the train up. I thought, nobody knows I'm here. And I was suddenly aware that everything I was wearing had a designer label on it of some sort. And even my cap, you know, had a little Nike symbol on it. And I'm just aware that basically I am saying I am wealthy, and yet I haven't got a bean.
Yeah.
And and I actually started to panic. And then I got this voice that came into my head. It just said, "You're not alone." And I suddenly felt the most amazing elation and happiness and joy come over me. And I started laughing. And then I started really bawling out laughing. And I tell you what, all of these people that were kind of like circling me, they all looked like, whoa, this guy's nuts, and they ran away.
Of course, that's a big deal.
Do you think that your trepidation was attracting them?
Oh, it could easily. I mean, God knows what my face looked like.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I mean, the energy of it, not necessarily how you physically look.
I just think, well, I don't know. I mean, I was being circled like jackals. I could see them do.
You are a walking advertisement of the West.
You're a tourist.
Everything. I'm a believer of when in Rome. You know, you'll find me in Egypt, and I will have my head covered and in the whole tire. I already wear coal eyes, so I'm ahead of the game.
Don't wear designer labels. I mean, and I learned something from that. It's like, why am I wearing designer labels anyway? You know?
Oh, come on. There's so much stuff that Westerners just take for granted that they don't understand that they're projecting out in every way.
That's right. To people who, all of that NLP stuff, the Egyptians have been doing for years.
Mm-hmm.
All that mentalist stuff, the Egyptians have been doing for years.
Oh, they perfected it centuries ago.
Yeah. I mean, somebody over there said to me, "Who do you think the pyramids were made by?" He said, "Because I think they were made by aliens." I was like, "No, they're built by the Egyptians." And he said, "Well, there's no evidence of that." I said, "They're the cleverest people on earth." And he said, "Well, why do you think they were built then?" Because I think they were built for this reason. I said they were built to get people here so they can con them of every single penny they've got. Otherwise, you know, all they've got is a bloody desert. You shove something amazing in that desert, people will come. You know, that's what they're.
I like your theory there. I still think that there could be other possible realities for the pyramids, but I agree with the Egyptians being very clever, and we get so much, and also the Indians in India.
I've never been. I would love to.
And so you get that same vibe, and the whole gypsy origins come out of Egypt and India, and you know, end up being, you know, the Roma people have kind of co-opted it, but it's really the birthplace is in these other places, and they understand these arts.
Yeah,
absolutely understand these arts.
Oh, I'm completely with Graham Hancock that there's been this is a rebirth of a previous civilization. I think it's fairly obvious, and you know, it is slowly starting to kind of like being taken more seriously, particularly with somewhere like Göbekli Tepe being discovered. No, I mean, I don't know. I would love to be able to do the whole out-of-body experience thing and do the time travel thing. And I would go back. That's one of the things I would go back to, as I go back and have a look at who was building the pyramids and how they were doing it. I'd go back to see if dinosaurs had feathers. Or
if they're real at all.
Yeah. You're going to watch Satan burying fossils to trick mankind.
There are very few full, you know, dinosaur fossils found. It's just all
pieces
that they put together and then extrapolated from there.
I mean, we are told basically what these things look like from the outside. We have no idea. We don't even know what color they were. We don't know what sounds they made or anything.
Nothing.
They might have talked in English for all we know, you know?
Yeah. It is exhausting talking to people that have bought the narratives hook, line, and sinker, though. I have gone around so many times with just the dinosaurs.
I find it fascinating, but to be honest with you, a little bit like the Egyptians, I've ended up being one of these people so fed up of every other bloody documentary on TV is either about dinosaurs or the Egyptians or World War II. I mean, I'm serious. My dad has watched more television programs about World War II. He spent more time watching World War II than World War II lasted for. He
Jeez.
lives and breathes it. And
It's nostalgic, maybe.
yeah. Convinced my niece that Adolf Hitler was her great uncle. That was amusing.
Oh my God.
Every time he comes on TV, Ellie, it's Uncle Adolf.
Oh my God.
That's like being at the Merkel house.
Yeah, our original name was Hitler. We had to change it in the 40s. No, it's not a laughing matter. There's nothing funny about Nazism.
No, there's not. But there, you can see I see the humor in what you're saying. Isn't it sad we actually have to say that now, though?
Oh yeah.
Because everything's so sensitive.
Oh, ridiculously so. I mean, Andy ended up leaving folk horror revival group for a long time because he posted footage of his father singing some traditional gypsy song that he'd been raised with. He was Polish.
Yes.
And, there was some woman from the States. I tend to find that people from the States are more prickly, and I don't know why that is. But she suddenly
I have ideas.
and basically called him a racist and everything under the sun. She was a gypsy. You don't use the word gypsy. That's as bad as the word. And he was basically, sorry, that is my heritage. You know, I'm sorry that might be offensive where you are, but I'm British. Don't have that.
I had a friend, dead Tony, he's dead now, who would use the term gypsy to describe anything that wasn't rigged or not right, like a dice game.
Yes.
It's a gypsy dice game, or it's a gypsy card game, or a gypsy lottery. He's pretty cool. He's dead though.
We have a lot of communities around where I am, and they're always riding carts around with horses on, and we've got
Tinkers?
Sorry?
Are they, what do they call it, tinkers or something over there?
That's what they
In
used to call
Ireland.
Irish people.
Yeah, in Ireland.
The Irish gypsies. Andy seems to think that they're not from the same as the Romanis. I don't know.
It's not like gypsy is a place. I mean, you can't really be racist against gypsies.
No.
So it's just a thing. Just a thing. I got questions from the audience.
Yeah.
If I may steer this conversation aside here. Do you think there was a historical Merlin or King Arthur?
Not in the way that those stories are presented. Those are beautiful, wonderful stories. I mean, and then the Welsh versions. I've got to big up my heritage in Wales from the Baron. Yeah, if you can get hold of the Mabinogion, they are. I think I pronounced that correctly. Those versions of the stories are very, very different and are very earthy, and just sumptuous and lovely. And yeah, but there certainly seems to have been somebody. I mean, there seems to have there's theories about a guy called Bear or something, who was basically a warlord, and Arthur apparently translates to Bear. But one of the things that you'll find here is that you have things connected with Arthur all over the place. You'll find it up in the Lake District. You'll find them in Scotland. You'll find them down south. I don't believe that one man could have travelled around that much and done all of this kind of like different stuff under the transport that they had. So it's just a British myth.
I always understood it to be like a title, almost.
But I think
like Anunnaki,
or Cleopatra, station.
I think there's an awful lot of the Arthurian legends and the actual story of King Arthur himself that you can see as being parallel to the story of Jesus.
Right, I was going to bring that up.
A lot of similarities there. I mean, Merlin kind of making it possible and bringing the baby to a grain and telling her she's going to have this son. I mean, in Merlin, you've practically got the story of the Immaculate Conception here. He's Gabriel. And then you've got the baby kind of being raised and is the king who's going to save everything. And then he kind of like he dies, like mentally becomes an emotional wreck, and bitter, and he's like he's just like asleep. He's not moving, and then when the Grail comes, he's reawoken and reborn. And even in that, you've got a resurrecting God-man story. So I think that idea has been with us in a lot of different traditions. I mean, you can find a lot of similarities in from the Christian story in Nordic myths and legends as well, in Celtic, Cthulhu, the warrior half god. You'll find a lot of these resurrection stories. So I just think that's what it is. But yeah, there's no reason why it couldn't have been based on somebody at some point. We don't have any record of them.
Right.
It was so long ago.
Yeah, imagine what else has been lost.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now the other question I have is like you get to pick.
Okay.
So the question was, what are your thoughts on Doctor Who or Tolkien?
Oh, I'd go. Oh, I like the early Doctor Who. I like the old black and white ones, and I like John Pertwee, and I like Tom Baker and Peter Davison. When I was a kid, it was Tom Baker and Peter Davison who was Doctor Who, and then it went very odd and a bit crappy with Colin Bacon and Sylvester McCoy.
And now
Which
it's
one is
crazy.
the one with the afro?
That was Tom Baker.
Tom Baker. Yeah.
Jelly
Yes.
baby.
That's the one I will always remember.
Yeah. He's always the one with a bag of jelly babies that he offers people. He solves an alien problem with a jelly baby. A scarf. He's brilliant. So yeah, but Tolkien was not a thing for me at all. I read Lord of the Rings when I was about 18, and it took me years to read it. Most boring book I've ever read in my life.
I concur.
It was like reading the Table of Elements, kind of like boron, son of carbon, son of lithium, beryllium, oxygen of, God, man.
There's a great Tom Lehrer song that lays that out in a nice mnemonic way for you.
I like him.
Yeah.
It's the story about the girl who kills her family. I absolutely love, and I can't think what it is. I discovered him on a CD put out by Gilbert Sheldon, who did the Three Freak Brothers.
Yep.
Yes.
It's called the Irish Song.
The Irish Song, yes, the Irish Ballad.
It's amazing.
And there's Poisoning Pigeons in the Park, which is also very good.
I don't know. I should get a complete compilation of him because he was hilarious. I wasn't aware of him over here. Whether or not he was ever big here, I just don't know.
He was never big here.
Was he not?
No.
He
was eclipsed by
being on all the talk shows.
Not like I can't remember the other guy's name. Who did the Hello Mother, Hello Father guy? Hello Mother.
Hello Mother. Hello Father. I know, right? Jerry, I'm surprised you're not on that already.
I'm looking it up. I don't remember his name. Alan Sherman. Alan Sherman eclipsed Tom Lehrer. And Tom Lehrer had a very, I would say it was black comedy, his music, versus Sherman, which was everyman music, So he was kind of stuffed in that memory hole.
I tell you who I absolutely adore, who has come out of something kind of similar, is Tom Waits. I just think the man is a genius.
Tom Waits is
Of
fantastic.
course.
He makes me laugh out loud, and then he does the darkest thing ever. About, the guy who set his wife's house on fire.
How about I like my town with a little drop of poison?
He's well-rounded.
Yeah. But I think a lot of his art, a lot of his music is art. So it's performance art as well as good music, which is even better. Camp Grenada. Thank you, Suzanne. All right. That is it.
Yeah, I can't choose. That is the answer to my question. I quite like Tolkien now. So I can't choose.
All right. One more question, and then I'm going to call it.
Go on then.
Who's your favorite Beatle? If you have one.
Do you know what? It used to be John. and then I discovered he was a bastard.
Mhm.
And then it was Paul, because he was actually an amazing songwriter. And
The first Paul or the second one?
Bird. But I think George Harrison's incredibly underrated. His song
I
"As
agree.
My Guitar Gently Weeps" is one
Yeah.
of the best Beatles songs ever. And that almost didn't make it onto the album just because it was a George Harrison song.
And that song is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And I think Ringo is just bonkers. I think he's mental.
Beware of Darkness is a really good George Harrison song.
I like the humor of Ringo.
Mm.
In those films, it's him who's the star. He's the main character.
Yeah.
And I've not seen the Caveman film he made. I want to see that.
It's not good.
Is it not?
No, but I've seen
I
it.
love Caveman films.
If you want to see a really bad one, it's called, I think, 1BC with Jack Black and
Oh yeah, bad.
someone else.
What was the name of the one that came out recently? Well, I'm saying recently, within the past 10 years. It was
Yes.
like fighting the saber-toothed tiger on the poster.
I have
Yeah,
no
what's
idea.
his name with that? Oh God, what's his name? It was terrible.
Was it?
Oh, what is his name? That main actor, the comedy guy. Oh,
Caveman movies.
I was drugged to it, and I should have been drugged for it. It was terrible.
I tell you what, I met Ray Harryhausen a couple of times, enough to say that I knew him. Not that I dare say he would say that he knew me. There was one time he was asking for questions, and I actually just said, I just really want to thank you. For you've changed my life. And he was like, thank you very much. He said, in what way? I said, you put Raquel Welch in a film.
Yes.
I said, it got me through some very difficult times as a teenager.
Raquel was well built. Oh my God.
So he said to me, he said, what did you think of my dinosaurs? And I went, yeah, they were okay. But he was a lovely old man. He was a lovely guy. I was very sad when he died.
Raquel is coming. That commercial, that advert.
She's still
Where she's
alive,
running.
too.
Yeah. Oh,
I can't
Raquel.
believe she was engaged to Leo Sayer.
Oh, I
The-
didn't know
the
that. She has a
musician?
house over here in
And
Portland.
they lived next door to John Holmes. So
Wasn't Leo
according-
Sayer? He was a musician, right, in the 70s and 80s? Yeah.
He had a great big afro. He's
Yeah,
still
I was
going.
going to say. Yeah.
I don't remember anything that he sang. He was just this funny, weird little bloke.
He had a very high voice.
Yep.
It was very
He had, like,
distinct.
One-hit song.
Or he was quite big over here. Well, he was from over here. But I saw him interviewed, and he said, so they'd be sunbathing and everything in the garden, and John Holmes is filming a movie over the side of the fence. And he said, we used to go and look over the fence to see what was going on. And on more than one occasion, John Holmes had invited him to go and take part in the film.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
See, Leo Sayer just reminds me of The Exorcist.
Oh, yeah,
I know
Richard
who you
Simmons.
mean. Yeah, the same.
Richard Simmons. He
Yeah.
reminds me of Richard Simmons.
There's a similarity there for sure.
The character, isn't he?
Yeah.
They both are really.
All right. Well, that's like we're almost at 2.5 hours.
I
Oh my
know. This
God,
has been
really?
fantastic.
You need to get to sleep.
I never sleep.
Yeah. The joke.
Lately it's been about like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I've gone, what's the point?
I'm up.
Shadows on it.
I slept for an hour. I'm up. Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you very much, John. Was there anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah. I've got these fiction books. Nobody ever buys them, and because they're only small, short, and they're novellas more than anything. I just put them up myself on Lulu. And there's a collection of short stories on there, some of which is maybe about some of the stuff that we're talking here, and then some of them aren't. They're just like contemporary short stories. There's a very funny one in there about a Nigerian prince conversation. And there's quite a few Jack the Ripper stories in there as well, because I was a bit obsessed with that at the time. So if you go to lulu.com/spotlight/John D. Chadwick. You'll find my books.
And the link is now in the description.
And then obviously, come and listen to our podcast.
Yes.
Because I'm a gobshite there as well.
But it is a really good show.
Yes, with the wonderful Melissa Martell, who we've had on.
Yeah, she's great.
She is wonderful.
Well, we're trying to do something different. I mean, it hasn't quite been the same as what we originally intended, because we thought we could kind of get all kinds of things happening live under the camera. The nearest thing to what I originally thought with that aspect was when we had Cobweb Mayers on doing automatic drawing live on the show. But quite often, I'll just do an illustration whilst somebody's telling us of something, some topic. And
I like that. Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to be able to do kind of sketches of if somebody's seen a cryptid or something, right, tell me what it looks like and I'll draw it. Because in all of these books, whenever you see the drawings, honestly, you can't tell jack shit from them, can you? I mean, some of them are drawn in Crayola. And you're supposed to look at that and go, oh, right, so that's what it looked like. Well, here we are. There's an artist here. I'll do the identikit. You tell me what the man in black looks like, and I will draw him. We'll change his nose. We'll get him looking the way that he should be.
I have an idea for a comic, so I will be in touch.
Oh, really?
Yes, I do. It's a really good one.
Okay.
You'll like it.
Hey, I tell you what, I love Akira. I like a lot of Japanese, the quality stuff.
Yeah. Manga,
Tomo
not
Katsuhiro.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff.
We'll need Grimstake to work through the anime.
Yes.
Oh, you were talking about Full Metal Alchemist last show. I noticed. Yeah, somebody was talking about magic in manga.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
And I instantly was thinking Full Metal Alchemist, Full Metal Alchemist, Full Metal Alchemist, and finally said it. It's that's the weirdest cartoon I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It's so good, I think.
And
the occult normalized and put out for children. Wow.
Well, you should watch the Netflix live action version of it if you really want to get freaked out.
No, I wanted to do the cartoons first. I'm a madman like that. I will actually go right to the beginning because I feel like I need to know before diving in. So I've recently gone right the way back to the very first episode of Dark Shadows. Melissa was saying to me, it is rubbish until Barnum was two.
Yes.
It wasn't. It was great. I loved it. It was like Twin Peaks.
Have you seen the show on Sci-Fi called The Magicians?
I haven't.
You might like that.
I took a look at Lex the other day. I thought, what the hell is this? I've never heard of this. And then I realised that the special effects guys from Core Digital, I actually met many years back. Obviously animation.
I never heard of Lex. Is it, what is it?
It's a pornographic science fiction TV show. I mean, really, it's like something that the French would have done in the 70s. It's almost like a Barbarella or something.
But it only was like one season, right?
It sounds.
I don't know. It looks really very 90s TV, and the special effects, they're not up to today's standard, and you've just got to take that on the chin,
Oh, I could check that out. Yeah, no, it's four seasons. Very cool.
Yeah, that was weird. I like a lot of Japanese films, Japanese gangster films, and the 70s Japanese gangster films are just brilliant.
There's so much great stuff in the 70s that was happening.
I don't watch modern cinema at all. I'm catching everything that's been going on around the world for years.
You just reminded me, speaking of Japanese gangster films from the 70s, Woody Allen's film, What's Up, Tiger Lily? Have you ever seen that? No. It's a Japanese gangster film that he bought the rights to and then redubbed it with crazy English.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It was hilarious when I was a kid. I don't know how funny it is now.
I'm just not a Woody Allen fan. I know the film and I didn't think it was that great, but I don't like Woody Allen.
I like Sleeper. My opinion on Woody Allen has changed since a lot of the information came out about him, as it has with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I adore Iggy Pop and I adore David Bowie. finding out about some of their activities in the 70s has made me feel very, very unsure about, but let's separate art from, their cultural importance is obvious.
I think this is one of the reasons why I've always been this way too. I like to experience the art separate from the biography of some, even if you know them. It's like in some ways you just have to.
You can't deny the importance of Michael Jackson.
Right, but then you get,
can't.
and then you get into the biography of him, and it's.
But is that a reason to ban his music? I just don't think so.
No, I don't think anything should be banned, personally.
Me neither. I mean, don't forget they did try burning Beatles records.
The whole censor culture has to go.
Yeah, we need to stop with that. Everything needs to exist and have its space. If you don't want to go there, don't go there.
We know nothing about Beethoven, what he was up to, do we?
No.
Or Mozart.
Or just some of the letters that surface.
With the push to digitize our world today, book burning or censorship is essentially deletion.
Mm.
And the source material may not exist anymore. So in that way, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank
Scary
you.
world.
I know we could keep going.
Yeah,
we could have like a 6 hour.
I'll come back. I'd love to come back.
We'll have you back for something else that we got working on. So
all right.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, John. It was a pleasure speaking to you. And thank you, Nish. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And next week we have, was it Sorolta next week?
Oh, yes, she's our May Queen.
That's right, May 1st.
Sorolta, yes.
Sorolta Defalte.
Yes.
So I don't know anything about her. It should be good times. So,
thank you, everyone. Thank you, John, so much. This is wonderful. And definitely tune in next week. Sorolta is fantastic. She used to do backup for ministry. She's got a great pedigree, and she's wonderful.
Yeah.
Hungarian fabulousness.
Yep.
Well, you're not putting enough out. I'm an insomniac, and I'm listening to you when I'm away, and I keep listening to them over and over again.
You are this episode is our 80th episode.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I need 81. I'm an addict, man.
I love that you're at 80th, though. That is very significant. The 8.
On 424.
Yes.
All right, people. Everyone, you have a good night, and we'll talk to you next week.